जी बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बअद फ़क़द क़ाल अल्लाह तआला फ़ी किताबिहिल अज़ीज़ बअद अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम क़ुल इन कुंतुम तुहिब्बून अल्लाह फ़त्तबिऊनी युहब्बुकुम अल्लाहु व यग़फ़िर लकुम ज़ुनूबकुम वल्लाहु गफ़ूरुर रहीम व क़ाल रसूलुल्लाहि स्वल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम अल मर्'ु मअ मन अहब्ब औ कमा क़ाल अलैहि सलातु वस्सलाम रब इश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद फ़ी अव्वलि कलामिना अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद फ़ी अवसति कलामिना अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद फ़ी आखिरी कलामिना. My respected brothers, elders, and sisters in the chat, Jazakumullah khairan ahsan al-jaza for joining this spiritual program. And it is also a blessed time. Imam Ghazali, rahmatullah alayhi, he mentions that during the day, there's two times where a person should not be negligent from the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, right? There's two times where we should capitalize these two times. One is before we go to sleep, and the other one is after Asr. Why does Imam Ghazali say after Asr? Imam Ghazali says we understand from the Quran, we understand from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the angels of the day shift are leaving, the malaika of the day shift are leaving, and they're going to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah all-knowing, He asks, when you left so and so slave of mine, what was he engaged in? Right? So if we spend that last time before Maghrib after Asr, engaged in the dhikr of Allah, engaged in the ibadat of Allah Azza wa Jal, what happens? The malaika, they give the glad tidings, because that's the last action they saw, that so and so person was engaged in your ibadat, and Allah makes the angels witness that so and so will be forgiven. Right? So we capitalize on these two times before the Maghrib time, right after Asr, as well as before going to sleep. Why before going to sleep? Imam Ghazali says that sister is the sleep of death, right? It's the sister of maut. Yani, when a person goes to sleep, right, then if he passes away, whatever condition, whatever situation he had passed away, he will be resurrected. That's why one sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is what? That when we sleep with wudu, we will be also resurrected with wudu. So you can understand that this sunnah, although it may be overlooked, but it has a lot of significance, that us sleeping in the state of purity also resurrects us in the state of purity, right? So Allah give us tawfiq to implement that sunnah in our lives, as well as including and inculcating and implementing an ibadat after the Asr prayer. That's why specifically this program, my intention was initially to do it Thursday after Asr, or Thursday after Maghrib, this program, but July 4th was there, so I figured people would be busy with family. That's why I did it today after Asr. In our madrasas, we used to have, and you'll see throughout the world, specifically Thursday night after the Maghrib prayer, people engage in the salutations, durood upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because now it's the day of Friday, and being a ummati, a follower of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? We want to capitalize on ibadah, on good deeds, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we understand in the coming slides, has mentioned the day of Friday has a lot of significance, and he himself told and gave us the action that we perform, which is what akthiru alayya min as-salah fi. Yani on this day, you increase in durood upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you look at the lives of the Sahaba, what happens? When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was coming to Medina Munawwara, Sahaba are lining up, anticipating to see the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, Allah did not give us the ability to witness that time. Allah did not bless us with being the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, we are the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we have the ability to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dreams. You can understand from the narration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man ra'ani faqad ra'ani." That anyone who Allah blesses with seeing me in his dream, then certainly that person has seen me in his dream, because verily, فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَا يَتَمَثَّلُ بِصُورَتِي. Shaitan cannot come in my form in a person's dream. Right? So from this narration, we understand that seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream is possible. Yes, what's interesting is there is difference of opinion amongst fuqaha and the people of tasawwuf. Can you see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the state of yaqadha, yani in conscious, as you're awake? That's a difference of opinion. Imam Suyuti has a discussion on that. Shawrillah Muhaddith Dahlawi has a discussion regarding seeing Rasulullah awake in the state of conscious, right? That is another topic for another day. But in terms of seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream, this is possible. And when a person sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream, then Rasulullah is giving reassurance that verily that is me, because shaitan cannot come in my form. Why can't shaitan come in the form of Rasulullah in a dream, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because Rasulullah is the figure of what? Guidance and truth, and shaitan is the complete opposite, right? Shaitan, right? And that will lead to confusion, right? So now if a person, Allah forbid, if it was potentially possible to see shaitan in a dream, and he poses as Rasulullah, then that's going to lead confusion. That's going to lead to confusion, right? So that's why whatever situation you see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in, you have seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The question comes though, we learn from Shama'il the details of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's characteristics, right? How Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked, his height, right? His eye structure, everything about his beard shape, right? The color of his beard, how many gray hairs he had. Now, what happens if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes to a person and blesses him in his dream, but he sees that person in other than what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is described from his Shama'il? There's a difference of opinion in that mas'ala. That Ibn Sirin, he says he's under the view that a person has not seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, majority of ulama, majority of fuqaha, majority of muhaddithun, they say that, including Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he says yes, when you see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream, whatever situation it may be, you have seen Rasulullah. However, if you've seen him other than his characteristics, maybe a person sees him without a beard, for example. Maybe a person sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with white hair, right? We learn towards the end of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his whole life he had a black beard except a few gray hairs, right? So what happens if you see, once a person narrates that he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wearing a suit, right? So this was not the libas, this was not the wearing of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when it comes to those occasions where a person is blessed with seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream, but he sees him in other than his shama'il, his characteristics, you have to get that interpreted by a qualified scholar. Oftentimes, it's because of the weakness of a person's iman, or it's a person, Allah Ta'ala is trying to indicate to that person certain things, right? That person may be lacking, that he sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in such situations, right? One important thing I wanted to mention was today's topic is going to be some actions we can do when it comes to increasing our chance in seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your dreams. One thing I wanted to mention is when a person does see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream, two things happen. Number one, either Rasulullah tells that person that I am Rasulullah, right? Or someone else in that dream. Let's say if a person is having a dream, right? And then someone else will tell this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's one way you understand that's Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself will say, I am Rasulullah, right? Or someone else in that dream will tell you this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another way is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam might not tell you who he is, but in your dream, right? Your ruh is understanding, right? Your mind, your ruh, your spirit is understanding this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though there's nothing said. That's also a person can say that he has seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So yes, this program I designed, I came up with for people to have certain actions in their lives which they can inculcate so that we can be blessed with seeing the Mubarak face, the Mubarak body, blessed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, there is a disclaimer that all actions we do is only for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Although seeing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a admirable goal, it's something that we want, but it should not be the purpose of worship, right? So in other words, our ibadah, these actions that I will mention, that will hopefully increase all our chances in seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dreams. This is our action, our ibadah is not contingent upon seeing Rasulullah. In other words, if we don't see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it does not mean that we stop in our ibadah. All our action is only for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Seeing Rasulullah is a bonus, right? So if a person works in the world, right, in his job, the bonus that he gets, whether he gets it or not, he still has to do the work, right? I have a job as a car mechanic. and whether I get my bonus, my commission, whatever it may be, right, I still have to do my job. My job is not contingent upon me receiving the bonus. Similarly, also these actions that we're going to learn in the upcoming slides, right? Our ibadah, those actions that we're going to perform, inshallah, it's not going to be only solely based upon seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather, it's going to be based on gaining the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we ask Allah to bless us with seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dreams, right? One disclaimer, again, another disclaimer is a person is not labeled a Sahabi, right? So if you do see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your dream, you are not going to be labeled as a Sahabi, someone who is a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor is it a source of Sharia. What does that mean? Dreams are not a source of Sharia. Only dreams are a source of Sharia for who? The prophets. So the prophets, when they had a dream, that was a form of wahi, that was a form of revelation. But for the layman, when we see a dream, and just to briefly summarize the concept of dreams, there's three types of dreams. Number one, dreams from Allah. Number two, dreams from the nafs. And number three, dreams from shaitan. We learn from all three the etiquettes. When it comes to dreams from Allah, that can be a bushra, a glad tiding. So for example, a person sees Rasulullah in his dream, and Rasulullah is happy with him. This is a bushra, this is a alama. It doesn't mean that person is a guaranteed jannati, but it's what? A bushra. It's a glad tiding for this individual that you are on the right path, and so it's trying to what? Motivate that individual to stay on the path. So this is a alama. And one of the etiquettes we learn when we see a good dream from Allah Azza wa Jal, immediately engage in the praise of Allah. Then you have the second type of dreams, which are from the nafs, right? What a person thinks about constantly, or a person's desires. Those have no etiquettes or haythiyat in terms of shariat. And in terms of dreams from shaitan, bad dreams, we learn when we see an evil dream, the etiquette is we spit towards the left and we say ta'awudh, right? So when a person does see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream, number one, he's not a sahabi. Number two, it's not a source of evidence. What does that mean? For example, a person sees Rasulullah and Rasulullah tells him, do not perform salah for the rest of your life, right? That does not mean now this person takes that as a hujjat, and he says, okay, Rasulullah told me in my dream, I cannot perform salah, therefore I have forgone my salah, I have let go of my salah, forsaken my salah. No, no, no. You have one example I bring over here. There was in Hind, one person, he dreamt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream, he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling him to consume alcohol. This person was confused. He wakes up, he says, Rasulullah is telling me to consume alcohol, and he's going around to the various scholars, and the scholars at that time were confused, and they said that, how can we interpret this dream? Eventually he came across a sheikh, and that sheikh said, in reality, in your dream, when you saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then what happened? He told you, do not consume alcohol, but because of the weakness and distortion and maybe the effect of sin, you heard the contrary, right? So in reality, Rasulullah was telling this person that this person who had a habit of drinking alcohol, right, don't consume alcohol, but because of his weakness, he couldn't understand and comprehend the whole dream, and that's why he had to interpret it from a scholar. If it does go in line with Sharia, then a person should implement it into his life. One example is maybe, right, to give maybe a personal example, right, is a few years back, right, I saw a dream, and in the dream, a certain person was under the influence of black magic, right, and this person was under the influence, and what happened was, I was looking for certain scholars at that time. This is the dream, right? And I'm giving you, because I can't think of other examples, so I'll give you a personal example. So what happened was, in the dream, I come across different scholars, and they advised me to recite Surah Muhammad, right? Surah Muhammad in the 26th juz. So I go back, as I started reciting Surah Muhammad to counter the black magic and evil eye, right? This person in the dream, he started coughing up from his mouth the evil eye. You know, in our cultures, we have the blue eye, right? That's like a form of shirk in a way, right? So this person, from his mouth, it started coming out these, in the shape of eyeballs, the blue eye started coming out one by one, and buckets started filling up with the evil eye as I was reciting Surah Muhammad, right? So now Surah Muhammad, I always advise people, right? This is something that we can inculcate into our lives as a tajruba, experience, that it helps a person from black magic and evil eye, right? This is something that now I understood from the dream, right? It's sunnah. It's not that it's sunnah. It's not that it's mustahab. It's no relation to sharia, but it's something that it's through experience that we can advise, right? So same thing when it comes to a person seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream. If the Rasulullah sallallahu tells him, how can you not increase in my recitation on the day of Thursday, for example, that person should now have this mindset. Rasulullah is telling me directly, right? That okay, I should now inculcate certain durud into my life, right? So now, what are some general actions that we can inculcate, inshallah, which will increase our chances of seeing the beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And like Sahaba narrate, right, seeing Rasulullah's face was never enough. You always wanted to see him more and more and more and more, right? They compared it to the moon, right? That's where you have two different discussions. You have, is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more handsome, or was Yusuf alayhi salam more handsome? Right? The answer to that is Yusuf alayhi salam's beauty was stagnant, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beauty was ever increasing. It kept increasing. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam possessed such a beauty where a person was never satisfied with it. You always wanted to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah bless us all with seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and continuously, right? Once you see Rasulullah once, you want to see him often in your dreams. So what are some general actions? Number one, the foundation of how we can see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The virtues of loving Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number one, you have one Sahabi, he comes to Rasulullah, one A'rabi, and he says, what can I do to enter Jannah, right? And what happens is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives him certain wadhifat. And then what he says afterwards, this Sahabi, he says, all I have when it comes to to present to Allah Azza wa Jal is I have love for Allah and His Messenger Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then what followed, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahabba, that a person will be with whom he loves on the day of judgment. The Sahaba, Anas radiallahu anhu, he says, when we heard this narration, we were delighted, we were the most happiest after accepting Islam, because now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that if we love you, if we love Rasulullah, if we love him, then we will also be accompanying him in the highest levels of Jannat al-Firdaus. So the foundation on seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dreams is loving Rasulullah, right? Another virtue of loving Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a person will taste the sweetness of Iman, right? And scholars do mention, right? Scholars do mention that when the hadith mentions that halawat al-iman, if a person loves Allah and His Rasul more than everything, when we say sweetness of iman, scholars mention there will be literally a sweetness in his tongue, and he will experience a sweetness, right, that Allah Ta'ala will bless him with. So loving Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the foundation on how we can see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dreams, how to develop the love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reading the Sirat of Rasulullah. Yes, we weren't blessed with being Sahaba, we weren't blessed with being the companions of Rasulullah. However, we were blessed with the Sirat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? The more we learn the life of Rasulullah, the struggles of Rasulullah, what he did for the ummah, the more our love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will increase. And you see, I do have some book recommendations, Muhammad by Martin Lings, as well as The Prophet of Mercy by Sheikh Nadwi Rahiq al-Makhtoum, right? How can we love Rasulullah but we haven't covered his life in Sirat from cover to cover, right? So this should be our goal, inshallah, that we cover the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the intention of what? Increasing our love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's the first general action that we inculcate into our lives when it comes to seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, loving Rasulullah. That's the foundation. Number two, emulating the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, he says what? The sunnah is like the ark, the ark of Nuh alayhi salam, right? Whoever is on the ark is saved. Whoever is outside of the ark of Nuh alayhi salam, he's not saved. So whoever follows the sunnah, he will be what? He will find success. He will find a happiness, right? So emulating the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was one of the wasiyats. This is one of the advices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I have left two things amongst you. Number one, the Kitab of Allah, the Book of Allah, and number two, the Sunnah Nabiyhi, the Sunnah of Rasulullah, the Sunnah of his Prophet. If you hold on to these two things, you will never go astray. So the more we emulate the Sunnah of Rasulullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more we love Rasulullah, our chances of seeing Rasulullah in our dreams will increase. Right? Rasulullah was the best of role models. Rasulullah was laid out the best paths. Right? That's why we make shukr. And I mentioned before, رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا ونبيا. Reciting this dua 3 times, right? Allah Ta'ala will be pleased with that individual on the day of judgment, right? So in every action, see what our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, see what was the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and implement that sunnah. One sunnah we must all adopt is the miswak. This was literally the last action Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed before he passed away. Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrates that Rasulullah was here on my bosom, right? And he was weak. And he was so weak because of him about to pass away, he could not speak. While Aisha radiallahu anha is holding Rasulullah in his final moments of his life, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what happens? The brother of Aisha walks in, radiallahu anhuma, and Rasulullah's glance falls upon the miswak that Aisha's brother, radiallahu anhu, had in his pocket. Immediately, Aisha understood that Rasulullah wanted to perform the miswak. She grabbed the miswak, requested it, and performed miswak upon Rasulullah. This was literally the last action, seconds before Rasulullah passed away. Miswak has tremendous benefits. It helps with the jawline in terms of benefits of health. In terms of health benefits, it increases your memory. It helps with digestion, right? Miswak gives a person the ability to say the kalima la ilaha illallah before passing away. Miswak removes phlegm. Miswak helps with digestion. So there's so many benefits when it comes to performing and using the miswak. So second action we do is emulating the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in every aspect of our lives. All right. Number 3, another general action, increasing durood upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This narration I have on the slide, this should be our goal, inshallah. I came across this narration and I was so content and happy with this narration in Tabrani, which has been deemed as Hasan. Yani it's a narration which we can quote. It's suitable to be quoted. What is the narration? Rasulullah has mentioned the one who says 10 salutations. And the easiest salutation is what? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. 10 times in the morning and 10 times in the evening, my intercession will become wajib for this individual. Allahu Akbar. Wajabat lahu shafa'ati. Literally 10 intercessions, 10 salutations, and you are gaining the salutation of, you are gaining the intercession of who? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So increase our salutations upon Rasulullah, our durood upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This will also increase our chances of seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dreams. Another narration when it comes to the virtues of durood is a person who sends one salutation, Allah sends him 10 times, removes 10 sins, and raises him 10 darajat on the day of judgment. One salutation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Allah Ta'ala is giving you 10 good deeds, removing 10 sins, and giving you 10 darajat higher on the day of judgment in Jannah, yani, right? So have a daily wazifa, as we'll mention in the upcoming slides, of how many durood you want to recite on a daily basis, right? How many durood, especially on the day of Friday, right? Rasulullah mentioned on the day of Friday, the durood, the salutation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is presented to Rasulullah. Allah Ta'ala appoints an angel, and that angel takes the durood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you say, and he presents it, the angel presents it to Rasulullah, and they say, Fulan, Fulan, sitting in New York, sitting here, is sending salutations upon you, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So one work that we had the habit in madrasa, in our school days, even to today, we have the habit of reciting Maulana Tanvi's work on the days of Friday, which is Thursday night, the 40 durood. If you put 40 durood of Maulana Tanvi, this is a good initiative or good way to start sending salutations upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of Friday, which is Thursday night. Imam Ghaznawi, who was from the Persian lands, he, a great scholar of the past, he had hopes of seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His story is interesting. He wanted to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream, and he would recite the Burda. Right? What is the Burda? It's literally coming up the next slide, so I'll wait for that, inshallah. Right? But he would have the habit of reciting the Burda with the hopes of seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream. But after a while, he wasn't being blessed with the opportunity of seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he goes to his teacher, and his teacher tells him, "Why don't you start reciting more durood, salutations upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?" And eventually, he was blessed with seeing the beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, three general actions: love Rasulullah, emulate the sunnah of Rasulullah, and increase in salutations upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, to go into the specific actions. What are the specific actions we can inculcate that will increase our chances of seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dream? Number one, recitation of Qasida Burda. If you go back to the 7th century, Allama Busayri was a scholar who loved writing ash'ar in praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And towards his life, Allama Busayri, he was Egyptian. He was an Egyptian scholar, Allama Busayri. He was diagnosed with a disease which left half his body paralyzed. And the doctors told him that there's no hope for you, that for the rest of your life, you're going to be paralyzed. So Allama Busayri, upon hearing this news, he goes to the masjid and he starts writing a poem in praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Eloquent poetry. He starts writing in praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And writing poetry is not easy, right? You want to rhyme it, make it sense, make sure it makes sense. The highest level of Arabic grammar has to be there, right? So as he's writing the poem in praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the final line, he gets stuck. On the final stanza, he gets stuck, and he's trying to end off this poem, right? And as he's thinking and pondering over it, he falls asleep. And when he falls asleep, he is blessed with the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream. Allama Busayri, when he sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream, what happens? He out of happiness, right? He cries to Rasulullah, indicating that he's paralyzed, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wipes over Allama Busayri, right? The parts that are paralyzed, and he also gives Allama Busayri a cloak, a burda, right? He gives him a burda. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also finishes off the poem, right? This the last stanza for Allama Busayri. When Allama Busayri is awoken, he wakes up from his dream. He is miraculously back to normal without any paralysis, right? When the day starts, another Sufi comes to Allama Busayri and he says, "Why don't you narrate for me the poem that you recited to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?" This is known as the Qasida Burda. What is the Qasida Burda? First of all, literally, it means, Qasida means a poem, Burda means the cloak. Why is it called the poem of the cloak? Because Allama Busayri was gifted what? By Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? A Burda. What is a Burda? A Burda, even at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the cloak. Even nowadays, you see the people of the Imams of the Haram, they wear the cloak, right? That's a form of what? This person is a place, this person is out of respect. He is in a high maqam, he's in a high position, he is an authoritative figure, he is being given respect in society because of his Islam, right? So at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a man by the name of Ka'ab ibn Zuhayd. Ka'ab ibn Zuhayd, he used to write poetry against Rasulullah, against the Muslims. So when he used to write poetry, he used to write it against Allah, against Islam, and against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims. What happens is he has a change of heart, right? And he comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam covering his face. He's hiding his face. Who? Ka'ab ibn Zuhayd. And he asks Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, this person, Ka'ab ibn Zuhayd, he's speaking to him, he's referring to him as a third person, right? He asked Rasulullah, "Will you forgive him even if he's making fun of you, Ya Rasulullah?" And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Yes, be witness, even if Ka'ab ibn Zuhayd comes to me, I will forgive him if he asks for forgiveness." Ka'ab immediately removes his masks and his covering and his veil. He says, "I am Ka'ab ibn Zuhayd, and by Allah, I accept you as the Prophet of Allah Azza wa Jal, and I ask for your forgiveness." And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forgave him. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forgave him, Ka'ab ibn Zuhayd wrote and said some words of poetry in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him a cloak that he was wearing. It was a Yemeni cloak at that time, a burda, and he gifted it to show the maqam of Ka'b ibn Zuhayd, that he had been pardoned, as well as now he is respected in society. So receiving a cloak in the times of the Arab, even now, was something that was given to a person of honor, right, of maqam. That's why I hate to give an example, but it sparked a lot of controversy when the 2022 World Cup took place, and the kuffar, the one who won, right, the famous soccer player, Lionel Messi, was receiving that burda. A lot of the scholars were not in favor of that, because receiving a cloak is something that we receive in honor of Sharia, right? That this is something that the Arabs had as a custom, that we give this person honoring his maqam in terms of Sharia. So Qasida Burda, right? Hence the poem of the cloak, because Alam Busayri was given a cloak. What is this Qasida? We all know this Qasida, the one that has what? Mawlaya salli wa sallim da'iman abadan ala habibika khair al-khalqi kullihimi. That's the Qasida Burda. That is the Qasida Burda, and there's so many benefits when it comes to the Qasida Burda. One of the benefits is if a person has the habit of reciting the Qasida Burda, he will be blessed with the vision of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I will share this later. You do have some translations available. This is by Imam Ghazali Institute, right? It's available here. You can find it. It's a nice writing of the Qasida Burda. So you can have the habit of reciting the Qasida Burda. This is also another commentary of the Qasida Burda. This is by Mufti Ibrahim Desai. Scholars from the 7th century till current day received ijaza, a sanad, that linked back to Imam Busayri, trying to gain the barakat of this qasida, of this poem of Rasulullah, praising Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Scholars like Ibn Hajar Asqalani, Mullah Ali Qari, Imam Suyuti, all had ijazas, sanads linking them back to the author of this work. And it's a beauty. He's buried, Alam Busayri, he's buried in Egypt, in Alexandria. And I had the fortune of visiting his grave. And his grave is attached to a masjid, which is near the Mediterranean. And from his grave, you can see the whole Mediterranean. The masjid, when the doors open, and the whole masjid walls have this Qasida Burda, Mawla Yusalli wa Sallim Da'iman, written around the whole walls of the masjid, right? So have this habit of reciting the Qasida Burda. Yes, it's a bit lengthy, right? Scholars do mention. So have the habit of 2-3 pages a day, right? Maybe certain chapters. It's a few chapters, but have the habit of reciting the Qasida Burda. Not only does it increase your chance of seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it also protects a person from evil eye. And this is through tajruba. This is not a sunnah. This is not mustahab. This is through experience. Scholars have experienced reciting the Burda. It increases the chances a person has in seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And scholars have seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because of recitation of the Burda, right? There are objections against the Burda out there, but no, they have no basis. A lot of the scholars who don't follow any of the madahib, right, they have objections. They say there's shirk in the Burda, which is completely false. Those who know any Arabic, scholars have already answered all the refutations and objections, and they have already been answered. So there is no objection, there is no valid objection against the Qasida Burda. So number one specific action we inculcate into our lives is the recitation of the Burda. Number two, the recitation of the La'ilul Khairat. So Qasida Burda was a poem in praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is the La'ilul Khairat? The La'ilul Khairat is a compilation of various durood upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyone who has recited the La'ilul Khairat, it's a book, right? He has experienced barakat descended upon him, right? The story of why the La'ilul Khairat was written. Imam Jazuli was a 9th century scholar from Morocco. So Alam Busayri was Egyptian. Imam Jazuli was Moroccan, right? One time he says that I went to perform wudu. Back then they didn't have sinks, they didn't have faucets. They had to get water from the well, right? So he says that one time I went to get water, and a young girl came across him and said, people praise you so much, but you're having a hard time getting the well from the water. So she came and she spat in the well, and immediately the well started overflowing and gushing, spilling water. And Imam Jazuli was impressed by the maqam, the level that this young girl had achieved. And he asked her, what action are you doing which made you come to this maqam? And she says, because those animals, the creatures, every creature which sends salutations upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I also send in abundant recitation upon salutations upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From there, Imam Jazuli, he wrote and he vowed to write a work just dedicated to sending salutations upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was known as Dalailul Khairat. The beauty of this work is the way the author structured it is based on daily wadifat. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the author has divided all the durud into certain days. So now every day, a person can have a certain amount that he recites. So Monday, the author has the durud that you recite. Tuesday, the author has the durud that you recite. Wednesdays, the author has the durud that you recite, right? I have one copy. You can find just the Arabic. I will share this later. The La'ilul Khairat. This is, you can find with English translation. So the benefit of this is just based on the daily basis. Monday, this is how much durud you recite. Tuesday, this is how much durud you recite. And personally, on a personal level, when I used to go to college, because there's a lot of fitna, there's a lot of negative energy in college, right? Meaning there's nothing wrong with going to college, yes. But because of the intermingling, right? I used to have the habit of reciting the La'ilul Khairat in the morning before going to college. And I would find a lot of barakat in my day, a lot of barakat in my time, and a lot of barakat in achieving my goals. So number 2 specific action is recitation of the La'ilul Khairat, the work of Imam Jazuli. So these were 2 specific actions. And then the final action, which Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he mentions in his Adhkar, right? Adhkar is his dua book, his famous, right, detailed work on what are the du'as a person needs on a daily basis. The dua of sleeping, the dua of waking up, the etiquettes of dua, the adab of dua, what are the du'as for the months, anything related to du'as. Imam Nawawi has written a famous, and one of the ummahat, actually, one of the sources when it comes to the field of du'as, is Imam Nawawi's work, Al-Adhkar. In there, he mentions that a person on the night of Friday, which is Thursday night, so after Maghrib is Friday. In Islam, the days start after Maghrib. He says a person should have the habit of praying 2 rakats, right? In these 2 rakats, each rakat after the Surah Fatiha, he should recite Ayatul Kursi 5 times after Surah Fatiha. So that's a total of 10. Then after the 2 rakats, that person should recite 1,000 durud, and this will eventually lead that person to be blessed with seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream. Allahu Akbar. Right? Sending 1,000 durud is not difficult. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, maybe 100 of them, it takes what? 2 minutes. But now, if you send 10 minutes, 2 rakats, Ayatul Kursi is not a long surah. It's literally 5-6 lines, right? So this is an action of Imam Nawawi that he mentions in his Adhkar that we can inculcate into seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our dreams. And just to sum it all up, again, seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, is a bonus. All these actions that I mentioned, durud, loving Rasulullah, emulating the Sunnat, Qasida Burda, the La'ilul Khairat, Imam Nawawi and the 2 rakats, all of this we're doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. So whether we see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether we don't see Rasulullah, it's still a win-win. Our actions will count to the court of Allah. At the very least, our love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will increase, right? And our iman in Allah and our ta'alluq with Allah will increase, right? Love the sunnat, learn the sunnat, and live the sunnat. The more we follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more Allah will bless us with the vision of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Eventually, if you do see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your dreams, may Allah give us all the tawfiq to witness and see the beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do not narrate your dream to anyone except 2 categories. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned that when a person sees a good dream, he should only tell 2 types of people: an alim and a nasih, a scholar and a well-wisher. Don't tell your dreams to someone who might potentially have envy for you. Because if you tell your dream, let's say a person sees Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dream, and he tells it to someone, and that person might have envy, and he interprets it otherwise, that will affect the interpretation of your dream. You see in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu after Fajr, which is also a lost sunnah, that what Rasulullah sallallahu would ask the Sahaba, has anyone seen any dreams last night? So Rasulullah sallallahu could interpret them. So may Allah give us tawfiq to implement these actions in our lives. If there's any questions anyone has, they can share right now. I'll take a few minutes if anyone wants to ask any questions. But increase your durood, at least 10 in the morning, 10 in the night. Recite the burda. The Dalail al-Khairat is easy. You can recite it on a daily basis, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. You have it's all divided by day wise anyway. So that's also beneficial. The burda you can find English translations, like I mentioned. Imam Ghazali Institute has published a very beautiful copy of the Qasida Burda. This was a habit of the scholars. Thursday nights, they will gather and they will recite these works, right, with the chance of increasing the root, attaining reward, and seeing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in their dreams. I personally have intention under Ihya as-Sunnah on Thursday nights to have every day 12 minutes on Thursday nights, every Thursdays, to do like a durud session, covering the work of Imam Talvi, inshallah. And if you are blessed, may Allah bless us again with seeing Rasulullah in your dream, right? Use that as an alama to be motivated to do good, and don't tell anyone except to a alim, a scholar who can interpret your dream, and number two, a nasih, someone who's a well-wisher. Because if you tell someone who wants bad for you, maybe Allah will remove that blessing from you. If there's any questions, otherwise we'll end off this program, inshallah. Allah Ta'ala bless you all for coming. Allah Ta'ala bless us all with the vision of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and resurrect us with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the highest levels of Jannatul Firdaus. We'll just give another few seconds if there's any questions, and then we'll end off this blessed gathering, inshallah. Khair, inshallah. Allah Ta'ala accept all our efforts. Allah Ta'ala bless us with the vision of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and resurrect us with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of Jannatul Firdaus, the highest levels of Jannatul Firdaus. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.